Hello and welcome to the Washington Urban Debate League's Novice Video Series. Today, we're going to be discussing being affirmative. First, we'll discuss what the role of the affirmative is, then walk through the parts of the first affirmative constructive, go through the parts of an advantage, what to do in the rest of the affirmative speeches, and lastly touch on how to write your own affirmative. First, the role of the affirmative in a debate. The first affirmative constructive lays out the affirmative case and is the only speech in a debate round that you can fully prepare before the tournament starts. Take advantage of this and make sure that you are familiar with every piece of evidence you use and that everything you say has a purpose. Make sure to use all of your time. Once you've outlined your case in the first affirmative constructive, you cannot change your position on anything, so write it carefully. The second affirmative speaker should take the lead in writing and organizing the first affirmative constructive. Since the 1AC is prepared beforehand, the first affirmative speaker just has to read it, while the second affirmative speaker has to actually use it and understand it to debate the negative. Use the first affirmative constructive as the basis to responses to negative arguments later in the debate. The more you talk about your first affirmative constructive, is a good sign that you're likely doing well during the debate. Two things to consider about the first affirmative constructive. The first is time. Each team gets the same amount of time to speak during a debate. Use the 1AC wisely and make sure everything you say can be used later in the round. The second is tactics. Figuring out what the other team will likely say against you is common sense. Preparing answers to these likely responses is also a good idea. You don't have to wait for the second affirmative constructive, though. Including preemptive arguments in the first affirmative constructive can help you win a debate later and save time for later responses. So, how do we build an affirmative? In debates that you have every day, you make arguments advocating for action, and you're likely making the same basic arguments that we will do in a debate round without realizing it. First, you'll advocate for what action you want done. For example, I don't want to do my homework. You'll advocate why you want that action done. Doing homework prevents me from playing soccer. And you'll also argue why that action will get the results you want. For example, I don't have enough time this afternoon to play soccer and do homework. In a competitive debate, your case is built on these same basic principles. All affirmative cases have the same pieces. We have fancy words to describe each part. The first is inherency. What is the problem and why does it exist now? The second is the plan. What do you propose to do about it? The third are advantages, or the reasons why we should do the plan. And the fourth is solvency. How is the plan going to work? Let's talk about inherency, the now. This is a statement of the problem or a need for action. Normally, inherency is introduced at the beginning of the debate to set the stage. For example, the United States instruction in math and science is falling behind other countries now. Or, white students and students from wealthy backgrounds traditionally do better on standardized tests and other measures of student success in the status quo. Inherency proves that we are not doing the plan already and shows what the barriers are for action. Next, let's talk about this plan. This is a statement of federal government policy action that needs to be clear with its intention and its actor. For the 2017-2018 season, it will describe an increase in funding or a new regulation for primary or secondary education. For example, the United States federal government should increase spending for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics education programs. Choose your words carefully. You have to defend every part of the plan, even those you don't claim benefits from. When you create an affirmative plan, it has to fall under the umbrella of the resolution. The United States federal government should substantially increase its funding and or regulation of primary and or secondary education in the United States. What falls under the topic and what falls outside of it is often a question of definitions. Pushing the boundary of the topic can be rewarding, but it's also risky. You may win some rounds with unpredictable solvency that is hard to answer, but you will lose to teams good at debating or who are well prepared for topicality. Let's talk about advantages. This is why the plan should happen. They should discuss the results of the plan action in a positive way, such as describing how the plan prevents bad things from happening, or how the plan causes good things to happen. An advantage has three main parts: the uniqueness, the links, and the impacts. The last piece of the puzzle is solvency, describing how the plan works. This is usually based from a single solvency advocate with supporting pieces of evidence. This answers questions like, who does the plan? How much does it cost? When will it happen? And why should the U.S. federal government take action? Preemptively answering questions like these are your best defense against counterplans and case arguments. In this next section, we'll take a deeper look at how to construct an advantage, the reasons why you should support your plan. These are the offensive pieces of your case, the reasons why you vote for your idea. If you don't have large, powerful advantages, you will not win a debate. When constructing a case, you should consider the following. Do you have more than one advantage, and ideally, are they different from one another? Do they have multiple links based on different results of the plan? And are they a big deal? Uniqueness describes what the situation is now. It's often important to include evidence of a pattern or trend or a recent update on the core justification of the affirmative. For example, education spending per student is decreasing now, or graduation rates for Latino students are declining now. These are both troubling trends that can be reversed by plan action, resulting in positive outcomes. These are often described as something good is happening less or something bad is going to happen more. When I talk about the link, I'm making a statement of cause and effect. We have laid out the uniqueness. What is happening now? How does the plan's action change it? Ideally for the better, the effect. Here are some examples. Increasing funding for students with disabilities could improve their education, an action and a result. Competition from increasing school choice options could improve schools overall, an action and an effect. A link could be a direct result of the plan. It could be a result of trying to do the plan. It could be a result of trying to do something in general. Or it could be an indirect result of the plan, such as a trade-off or a response by a third-party actor, etc. Diverse link stories are important, so the negative can't sit on one idea and beat you. When it comes to the impact, we're talking about the outcomes of the plan action. What is the effect that the link generates that is a good thing? For example, economic growth could prevent war, a good outcome. Terrorism could kill thousands of people, probably something we want to avoid. And rejecting racism is ethically necessary, also probably a good idea. When describing your impacts, you should think in terms of the following ideas. Magnitude. How big and important is the outcome? Time frame. When will this happen? Likelihood. What is the risk or probability that the bad things are avoided or the good things happen? Now that we've laid out the first affirmative constructive and all the building blocks, what do you do during the rest of the debate when you're on the affirmative? Let's look. First, you need to extend the case. This is essential for the affirmative. If you stop arguing your case and just give up, you've lost the round. Doing so strategically, however, is important. Think, what parts of your affirmative can you afford to lose? What parts do you intend to concede but want your opponents to waste time arguing? And what are your weaknesses? What points can you not win without? Answering your opponent's attacks directly against your case should always come first, at the top of each affirmative speech. Be sure to get to the other arguments, but at the end of the day, you need your affirmative case above all else. In the second affirmative constructive, you've now seen what the negative has in mind. They've tipped their hand about potential strategies to attack your case. This speech is your last opportunity to add new evidence into the debate, so make it count. Build up the first affirmative constructive as an impenetrable wall of logic and evidence, and challenge the negative to break through. Make sure to include in the speech how you can solve your affirmative, the how, the solvency of your case. Make sure that you have at least one advantage or reason to do the plan, and that you've answered any offensive reasons against your case from the negative. The first affirmative rebuttal is the hardest speech in the debate. The negative just spoke for 13 minutes back to back. If they aren't winning the round after that, they've already lost. The first affirmative rebuttal should take some substantial prep time and think strategically. What parts of the affirmative are absolutely necessary? What can I afford to lose? And how do I rebuild them after the negative talked so much? Remember the key building blocks of your case. How does your case work, the solvency, and why should you do it, the advantages? Be sure to include a compelling narrative to remind the judge what your case is all about, and start to do impact calculus and draw comparisons with the negative. The key to a first affirmative rebuttal is time management, so be creative answering arguments, group them together, and know what you can afford to not answer. The second affirmative rebuttal is all about persuasion. The negative has no more speech time left, so it's just you and the judge. Remember, don't make new arguments in the second affirmative rebuttal. The judge is not supposed to evaluate them, since the negative has no time to respond. If you can make it sound like you're extending an existing argument when you're actually putting a new spin on something, and you can actually get away with it, that's smart and creative. Be sure to tell a narrative about why your case is a good idea, draw comparisons with the negative, and do impact calculus, why your case is more important than the negative.